About 6 years ago, I uploaded my first ever video to YouTube. It was a video of me traveling through Central America alone. It was my first ever solo trip, and I spent 7 days traveling through Costa Rica and Nicaragua and documenting my trip and my process. This trip came at a time where I was ready for a huge change in my life. At the time, I was living in Berlin, a place that I ran to when I wanted to escape the life that I had in London. For me, Berlin was freedom. Berlin was self-expression. And I spent my time there as a techno DJ, playing hard techno in the clubs, working with touring artists, and taking a lot of drugs every weekend, drinking, till my life spiraled out of control and I hit breaking point. And I realized that this wasn't a sustainable life. It was time for me to go on a journey deep within to discover what led me to this place in my life, to my pain, to my trauma, and what was my purpose beyond standing in a club, playing music to people who were out of their minds on drugs, that could not even understand if it was a beat or if it was me smashing my hand against the table. So I went, and I traveled, and I traveled. And to be honest with you, since I started, I never really stopped traveling. I always went on one trip after another and another. Myself that this trip was important, that I needed to see this part of the world, that I was called to be there. There was something that I was going to learn, something that was going to transform in me, because inherently I felt that I really was not okay. Through my trauma, my pain, my existence in this world so far, I needed to change. So I went to India and I learned to be a meditation teacher. I went to Peru and I sat in the jungle to drink ayahuasca with the shamans. I went to Colombia and I lived with indigenous tribes in the mountains in Minca. I went to learn permaculture. I went to study the cultivations of mushrooms, sacred mycology in Guatemala. I went to metaphysical school in Las Pyramids. I went to South Africa to discover the land. I went to Australia to find my relatives and to see if that was where my home was. And all this time, through this exploration, through this uncovering, and through this healing process, I couldn't really work out if I was finding myself more, if I was losing myself. I felt that every time I went to a place, I would start to connect with people, build some foundations, and then I would be off again. And to the outside world, to everyone watching, everyone on Instagram, it was so glamorous. It was so a life of a dream that I just could pick up and travel the world and do whatever I wanted. But nobody saw behind the scenes the struggles that I didn't share, the difficulties that it presented to me in my life, the instability, the pain that I felt that every single time I started to feel like I'd found a home, a place, a calling, then my visa ran out and I had to leave. So it was on to the next place and the next place. Pleasing people as I went, as I would share parts of my life and these magical adventures down in Tulum, Mexico City, Ibiza, everywhere that people want to be part of and want to be seen. But I wasn't there for the party. I wasn't there for the Instagram feeds. I was there to find community and to find connection and to find where I belong in this world. Because the biggest question that I've had since I've been on this journey is, where is home? And what I've come to discover through the traveling of these 6 to 7 years is that you have to just decide a home. You have to pick a place. One thing I can tell you from all of this traveling, from all of this glamorization that you see over Instagram, over social media, over TikTok, is that it will never solve your problems. In 6 years, yes, I've healed a lot, I've transformed a lot, and I know that I needed to go on these journeys to get to this core of this version that I am now, which is so different from the person that started out at the beginning of all of this. But as I'm sitting here now, back in Paris, a place that I decided to come to in 2022 for the first time, I have realized that I'm still facing a lot of the same issues that I was facing when I started the journey, that have not been possible to face by constantly moving, changing, uprooting, being unsettled, being ungrounded, not knowing where your home is going to be from week to week. It's truly exhausting. And even if you do know where your place is going to be for the next 3 months, let's say you're lucky, you know where you're going to be for the next 6 months. Because I honestly haven't stayed in a place longer than 3 months in the past 6 years. Say if you know where you're going to be for the next 6 months, but then after then it's uncertain and you may have to leave. There is so much destruction in that process. And I've had to admit to myself how destructive this pattern is and how unglamorous it is and how impossible it has become to build anything in my life without foundations. I just spent 3 months in California, in Los Angeles, and I was just starting again to build a life, to build a home, to build friendships, relationships, and connections. And maybe I should blame myself for being stupid and thinking that some way, magically, I can just stay in the States. I can't. So I'm back again in another place, back in Paris, and I feel like I'm just starting my life all over again from the very foundations. That really, maybe you're going to show some things on Instagram through traveling, through this special life that you think that you're showing to the world. But once it's done, once you stop, you're left with the memories, but there's nothing else. You're left with the memories of beautiful connections of people that you met, but they're not in your life. You're left with the memories of a beautiful place that you lived, but you don't have it anymore. You're left with the memories of maybe an animal that you had, but you couldn't keep. You're left with the memories of projects you were involved in that were not sustainable because you had to leave. So traveling is not the answer to your problems. You may want to leave your situation where you are now, and I'm guessing where you are now is not great, potentially, if you want to travel. And maybe traveling is better than the situation you're in right now. You get to see the world, you get to experience different things, and I don't regret any parts of my traveling at all. But I was delusional and under the unrealistic expectation that traveling was going to bring me much more. That traveling was going to bring me a home, a partner, a career, a future. But it didn't. It just led me around the world. And maybe that's what life is, just experiencing the world in different places, but to always have such a transient nature. I don't know if it's within our human design to feel always flighting and floating around this earth. So I've decided to stop. I've decided to stop traveling, to give up traveling. And honestly, when anyone tells me, let's go here, let's travel over there, let's go to this country, let's go and do something over here, over there, I actually can't think of anything worse than getting on a plane right now and to travel anywhere at all. All I want to do is be grounded and be in peace. And it's really funny because the same time, 7 years ago, that was all I wanted to do. And now I've come to this 7 years of my life and I've completely switched. That I just want stability and security and wholesomeness and people as well around me that are grounded. Not people who are on this traveling loop, nomadic spiral. I need people in my life that have this foundation. So now, I am going to share with you parts of my life, parts of my journey, in being stable and being grounded and being present, hopefully in this place, in Paris. It's a few weeks before Christmas, 5 weeks before Christmas. And I don't have family to go to for Christmas, so I don't have any major plans. My biggest fear used to be being alone at Christmas, being not with my family, and if I wasn't going to be with family, then my biggest fear was being in a cold country. I had to go to warm places every winter, and that was part of it. But this few weeks, when I realized I had to come back to Paris, I sat myself in the mirror and I said, you have been through so much in your life and so much worse than just spending a Christmas, a day in a cold place. You can do this. You can do this. Christmas, I just wanted to always be so distracted, so I didn't have to think about the loss of my family. That's why I went to all these places. Well, one of the reasons. But this time, I think going through this Christmas, even if it will be tough, I will be really proud of myself for having done it. Because for me, that was actually one of the most scariest things, more scarier than going to live in the jungle in Peru, drinking ayahuasca and being surrounded by snakes and spiders. It just was. And the fact that I feel like I can now take that on, I think is showing me another level to myself in the way that I've transformed, the way that I've matured, and the way that I'm just ready for the next stage of my life. So I'm going to share this journey with you. wherever it takes me now, because it's still uncertain. Like, I want to stay in Paris. I believe I want to stay in Paris. I would like to go to the States, but it's just not possible, I don't think, at this moment in time. It's extremely complicated, the visa process, and long. So I'm not going to get to the States for Christmas, and because I sincerely do not want to move around any longer, I'm here in Paris. So let me just spend some time building a foundation for a few years, gathering myself together. I think the biggest achievement for me will be to stay in the same apartment for 1 year. If I'm able to achieve that, that will actually be a huge, huge milestone for me. And it sounds ridiculous. Like, some people stay in the same apartment for all their life. But honestly, over the 6 to 7 years that I've been traveling around, I've probably moved about 10 to 20 times a year. Maybe even more if it was the days where I was really, really traveling a lot. And I feel like my soul is so tired. I feel like my soul just needs a break. So this is a new era of my life, one where I'm not wanting to run away from the darkness, from the harsh realities. I have gone in a lot and faced them, I have been putting myself through extremely uncomfortable and dangerous circumstances at times, especially in South Africa and India and Peru when I was alone. And there was times where I was really actually afraid for myself. So I don't always recommend people to travel alone, because I've definitely been in situations that no one would want to be in. So I've faced adversity, but I think this is simply the next era of myself. I feel like I've released a lot. I feel like I've transformed a lot of outdated ancestral timeline patterns within my life. I let go of some of that karmic programming, released it, really feeling like I've released it, and I have so much to share and so much to talk about, that I want to make this about showing the real side of life, but also showing what's possible, because I do believe that when you get to the root of things and you unwork it, undo it all, and start with this kind of new foundation, which is where I'm at right now, the possibilities are so wide. Like, even if I had come here 7 years ago when I started this journey, I don't think that I would have the same position that I have now wherever I went, because I wasn't the same person back then, and I didn't do all the work that I've done in order to be where I am now. So even though traveling does not escape you of all your problems, it's necessary. I felt it was necessary to dedicate those 7 years of my life to doing that, to doing the work, to doing the healing, to doing the growth, to doing this deep transformation. Because it's a collective thing. It's not just going to transform us deep inside and improve our lives and improve our surroundings and improve everything that we have going on, opportunities. It's also going to transform the collective consciousness, because if everyone does this, if everyone did it, we would all rise up in the frequency of the world and have the ability to transform the quantum world, the quantum atmosphere, to a much higher vibration, that we would change this world into a more positively charged place than a negatively charged place. So, if you are considering even doing a small amount of transformational work, growth work in your life, then I really recommend it. I really say it's one of the most noble things that you can do, because a lot of people don't do it. A lot of people don't want to admit that there is a lot to work out and to figure out. There is for everyone. We're not all just born as these perfect souls on earth with no lessons, with no trials, no transformation. And I have heard that sometimes the souls that have the most challenging journeys, the toughest journeys, are the most advanced and evolved souls, because they were brought here with a mission to be able to carry that. So that's why I feel like connecting in these online spaces and YouTube is so important, to feel connected. Because if you've been led to my video, I think that potentially you are an old soul on your journey, on your path, or about to step onto it, to also go through things to transform, to raise you up. So yeah, I want to show the limitless potential. I'm definitely not where I want to be right now, but I'm going to show this journey and just see where I go. Just see where I go with this intention, with this mindset, in comparison to the mindset I had 7 years ago, which was extremely negative, which was so heavy. And I feel like I've truly lifted weights from my body. Hundreds of weights, hundreds of anchors, hundreds of hooks and strings and everything attached. Like, I've just taken them off. I've taken them off like a heavy cloak with rocks, just put it down. And now I'm here. And so with this channel, I'm not really going to go much into my past, because I really feel like I want to stay present, and I don't want to give all the ownership to my past, because although there are magnificent lessons in my past, in everyone's past, you all have magnificent lessons, I believe that being focused in the present and forward visioning is a much higher state of being than constantly reflecting to the past. And I've also found a lot within myself by reflecting back to the past keeps me sometimes stuck in the past and stuck in a mentality that I long left behind. So this is just the introduction video so people know where I'm coming from and a starting point. And going on from this, my videos are going to be more about inspiration, dream life creation, up leveling, and just seeing my process, like my raw, unfiltered process of coming back to Paris with bare foundations and having to build my life again from scratch. But this time with a much clearer intention and much clearer purpose. When I first set out traveling, I had no idea. Now, my visions are so clear and strong. So, I hope to inspire you with this. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up and remember to subscribe to my channel. I love you being here. And please feel free to comment as well, because any comments you make, I will answer them 100%. I love interaction on my channel, and going on from here,